7 p.m., I'd like to call this special meeting of the Village Board to order. Clerk Waters, would you please take the roll? Clerk Waters, can you hear me? Clerk Waters?
Yes, can you hear me?
Now
We can.
Yes.
If you'd please take the roll.
Trustee Eater,
Here.
Trustee Enya,
Here.
Trustee Levin Jacobson,
Here.
Trustee Straw,
Here.
Trustee Taglia,
Here.
Trustee Wesley, and President Skaman.
Here. Thank you. Okay, so Trustee Enya is participating remotely according to our protocols. And I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the agenda as it's been presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Levin Jacobson, seconded by Trustee Eater. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And do we have any non-agenda public comment this evening?
No, not for this meeting.
Okay, anyone present? Thank you. And so for our regular agenda item, of which we only have one, I have a motion to select a preferred design option for the fire station 2 replacement project and refer the item to the Finance Committee for future planning. So this is, do we need an official motion for this? Yes? Yes?
So we.
Okay, motion by Trustee Taglia.
Second.
Seconded by Trustee Levin Jacobson. Village Manager Jackson.
Yes. Oh,
I think we're all set.
1 second. Yes, we'll let them know that. Okay. All right. So, I want to introduce Rob Sproul, Public Works Director. He's going to open it up for us so we can jump right into it. Rob.
Yeah, good evening. Public Works Director Rob Sproul. Tonight we're here with an agenda item for a motion to select a preferred design option for Fire Station 2 replacement project and then referring the item to the Finance Committee for future planning. As part of the 2026 capital improvement budget, the Village Board identified funding to support the hiring of a consulting firm to do a space needs analysis and conceptual planning study of Fire Station 2, sometimes also referred to as the North Fire Station, located on Augusta Avenue just east of Lombard. We're here tonight with our consultant from Cordigan Clark to present the outcome of those findings, along with 3 conceptual design options presented for consideration that include different possible outcomes or options for advancing this project forward in the future. And we will be highlighting some financial, operational advantages and disadvantages of each item. So what we are looking for in terms of direction is a recommendation on one of these options to advance forward as the path forward for this project continuing into the future, and then referring the item to the Finance Committee for consideration in light of all of the other capital requirements for the village and coming to a determination on where this project lands in terms of priority and planning on its financial plan. So without any further ado, we'll get this going. We have Nathan Malott with Cordigan Clark here, who led the study. We also have JT Cherry, the fire chief, as well, who'll be available to answer questions after we go through the findings.
This all good?
Yeah, you can just scroll or tap.
Perfect. Everyone hear me okay? Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Rob, for the introduction. Thank you for having me here this evening. My name is Nathan Malott. I'm a managing director of our Chicago office for Cordigan Clark. We've been working with fire departments for over 15 years now, helping them and their villages and cities work through the programming and planning phases and bringing concept to actual construction. So let's move into what we were actually doing today. Put together a quick agenda here. I'm going to briefly go through the purpose and process that we worked with the village team as well as the fire department. I will talk a little bit about the existing conditions that we discovered. I'll go through our space needs analysis process and then what we used to develop the criteria for the design concepts we're going to present. Initially, the purpose really was to document the existing conditions of the building, to identify constraints and challenges of the existing space, to look at multiple solution options, whether it was renovation, tear down, new construction on site, or new construction on a different site. And ultimately, the whole goal was here to provide a list of options for the village to make their transparent decision on how they wanted to proceed. Just a quick oversight of the process. We came on board late last year and have been working with the village team and the fire department. We started with a series of site visits of the existing building. We put together a questionnaire that was distributed to the fire department and some of the village team to get some initial feedback. Those questionnaires were then followed up with interviews with a few key people to follow up on any questions we had from the results from the questionnaire. Those meetings led into the development of what we call a needs wants matrix, which I'll show you a little later from the report. And that matrix helped us do our prioritization review with the fire department and the village to identify what components really were necessary and what were needed for the current site versus what are wants for maybe a different site or a larger sized fire station. And those all became pieces that we used to do our concept development. And then from there, we did concept tests where we looked at how those might fit on different sites and what that might allow or not allow. And then finally, all of that got rolled into the final report that we issued back in May. Oh, there we go. So moving into our existing conditions review, we are talking about Fire Station 2 at 212 Augusta. A couple of images here of the current condition of the building on the exterior. And also want to note the site plan. It is a unique site. It is not a standard Oak Park site location. It's sort of bisecting your normal site orientation. The understanding is that this building, which is over 100 years old, was probably placed before some of the residents were built around it, sort of landlocking what the current site can accommodate. You'll also notice from the photos that there have been several renovations over the lifespan of the building. You'll notice some of the brickwork's been patched in. There are 2 bays to the current station. However, neither bay actually can accommodate current safety equipment. The larger bay works with the engine that's there, but the smaller bay can't accommodate any other vehicles, and you are limited in your depth of bay as well. We'll get a little bit more into that as we move through the conditions report. It is a 2-story building with partial basement. We did develop a couple of plans for records just to identify some of our constraints and look at the space needs side of it. So we have those plans now built into the report. And then I'm going to do a quick summary here of each floor. There are more things identified in the report itself. I'm just doing a snapshot here. But looking at the basement area, currently this partial basement, which is about half the footprint of the building, it is where the cleaning area is, as well as safety equipment storage and a small workshop, along with most of the utilities, boiler, water heater, those kind of functions that service the building. Everything is very tight. It is very low overhead. And also you have a lot of gear being stored openly in areas that are difficult to reach and are not conducive for response activities of getting equipment and then getting onto the trucks. So there's a lot of inefficiencies in the layout, and there's also some practices that would not be used in a modern day fire station facility. Moving to the main floor, this is your aft bay floor. As I mentioned earlier, there are 2 bays, but one of them is undersized for current vehicle use. So it's been repurposed for a fitness area, some weights and workout. But if you look at that bottom right corner, that equipment is located directly next to your engine parking area. There is concerns about safety from diesel engines. The engines do idle at a time because they are diesel-based. There are exhaust systems in place to capture that and remove it from the building. However, having your fitness area or a public gathering space immediately adjacent to engines is not a preferred approach, and it would not be something done in a modern fire station. The building itself has some structural limitations. The 2 photos on the left, you can start to see that there's very little clearance for a modern engine to park in this. This building was built originally for horse and cart. There used to be a carriage or a stable for horses in the back of the property, and this building was designed for a 1900s fire cart. So very different needs have evolved over the life of the building. There are some structural components, like the second picture has the column that is very close to the engine, which makes it tricky for parking. We want to try to avoid placing columns of this nature so close because the engines now run upwards of several hundreds of thousands of dollars. You do not want to have your drivers who are rushing in and out to have to worry about possibly scratching or dinging up access panels on that equipment. Is very expensive to repair or replace. So again, modern design, you would move that structure further out or try to do free structure design process. And then lastly, safety. Getting around the vehicles in equipment requires extra space than a normal corridor. Current layout and size of the building does not allow for that safe transfer of people and equipment around the engines while they're parked in the bay. Lastly, there is an open office area adjacent to the fitness center on the main floor in the app bay. There is a normal practice is to have some sort of a control radio room adjacent to the app bay for visual access for safety, but that's usually separated from the app bay, not in the app bay itself. I think the fire department's done a very good job of working with what they have to this point, but that is not how a standard practice would be in a new design. Going to the second floor, which is the housing floor of this building, it is a tight fit for the group that's there. They've made do with what the space they have, but the kitchen and day room area is undersized for the staff size we normally see. There's also an insufficient number of toilet fixtures. There's one shower and one toilet on the housing floor, which is not usually, that would not be adequate in a modern design. And then the bunk room, while larger, it's not laid out efficiently. There's a lot of lost space up there for sleeping as well as congregating when you're off duty, or not off duty, but off active hour. And so there's some inefficiencies in that space, and it's a challenge working within that confined area. Also, locating housing second floor above an app bay, again, because of the potential carcinogenic components that are in the app bay, is not a desired approach. We typically try to look at one story, or if we do a two-story construction, we try to get the housing away from the app bay space in new construction, new design. So, components of the building we identified. We also, through our interview, were looking at some of the key criteria that we wanted to use for planning purposes as we developed the matrix. And these were the three things that kind of kept coming up in our conversations. So looking at the community side and supporting the community, there's a desire to add an advanced life support ambulance crew at this location, which the current building cannot facilitate because of the lack of opening width and app-based space for the ambulance. There's also a drive for overall station safety improvements for the staff that are living there on a 24-hour cycle. And there's also, from the fire department side specifically, a recruitment and retainment approach. Illinois is one of the 50 states. They're all dealing with recruitment and retainage issues. Every fire department is vying for a smaller pool of candidates and trying to attract and keep those people working in the community to improve the services, given that the community is a high goal that the fire department identified. So using those components, we developed what we call a space needs matrix, and this is just a sample of a few pages from that. But what we do is we look at all the components that would go into a fire station design, and we look at, in this case, we looked at what the existing building can provide, what the basic needs would be to fit a building of this size, what a new construction of a similar building would require, and then what the wants would be if we could have anything we wanted in a fire station. So there are 4 columns here that you can see. I don't know if there's a point. Oh, here we go. So each of these columns represents one of those categories. And we start to develop a square footage based on the occupancy count or anticipated occupancy count of the fire station is going to be, and then looking at standard practices, what the size of those spaces should be. What that revealed to us, if you look at the bottom of the first column, which is the existing building has about 3,500 square feet if you add in the basement. Best practices, you would, for a station of the providing ambulance and engine crew and with the staffing size they're looking for, you need to be about double that, around 6,500 square feet to provide the spaces you need. one of the big components that's missing in the current building is space for a decon area, decontamination area. Best practices now for fire station is when firefighters return from a fire, they are basically hosing off whatever on their outer gear, the particulate matter. That gets off in the app bay or a specialized room. Then they take off those outer layers, put those immediately into a special washing system to remove the remainder of that carcinogenic material. They then go and take a shower to get the remainder off, and then they change into and get into their civilian clothing. So it's a 3-step process to move from your red zone to your green zone, which was kind of a parlance we use in our design, where we look at app bay being your heavy contamination, shower area and cleaning areas becoming that yellow mid zone, and then your housing side being fully separated ventilation-wise and access-wise. So you're not exchanging air between your app bay and your housing side. So looking at those parameters from that particulate side alone, we're short in the existing footprint of that current building by at least 1,500 square feet. Overall, with other components that would be needed in a modern construction, you're looking at about a 3,000 square foot delta between where you should be and where you are with that existing structure. Building into the fact that the structure also has other limitations in regards to its actual structural grid and footprint size, especially at the app bay level. There are several conversations we have with the fire department about looking at possibly demolishing the building and building new on the same site, because there are things that could be accomplished with a new building that cannot be readily provided by an addition or renovation to the existing due to its current structure and some of the footprint limitations that lie within. So using that as a stepping stone, we did move into some of our concepts. And so I did want to point out, we're going to go over 3 of the concepts that we're recommending as for various options. We did look at up to 6 different options, but 3 of those got pulled out just to not very feasible, and there were better options available in the first 3. So we're going to present those 3 to you tonight. So option 1 is looking at a new building on the existing site. We do increase the footprint of the building. We retain 8 parking spots to the north side because we do need to manage some parking for staff change as there's a shift rollover. We also on this plan identify the size of a typical engine if it's pulled out from the bay for maintenance or any other cleaning or other functions that might need to happen outside the app bay area. The placement of the building is set back from the street to allow that fire engine to be contained within the property for the most part. It does overhang the easement a bit, but it won't intrude into the streetway itself. We had to look at every potential limitation on the site. This approach with the 2-story option, it does allow for existing utilities to stay in place, so that's a benefit. There wouldn't be any disruption to neighborhood communities by relocating a fire station to a different location. This area's always had a fire station. In this scenario, it would maintain a fire station. You have, with a new design approach, you have the ability to improve your adjacencies and your zoning separation that you don't currently have in the existing building. There are some other benefits with the 2-story option where we're able to locate some space for mezzanine by increasing the height of the app bay. And also in this option, we are looking at adding a basement to add some of that extra square footage that's not available in the current footprint. Some of the challenges, and some of these are kind of replicated throughout, is that it is still a 2-story building. We really can't get away from that with this site. Construction work will require a temporary shutdown of the fire station itself to do the work. There's not enough space on the site to move functions somewhere else on site and then do the work. There's just not enough footprint on the ground. And obviously we'll have to dig deeper excavation to do a full basement build out. A quick overview of the plans for this particular approach. So going left to right, the left plan is the basement plan where we are placing a lot of the immediate decon activities. The idea being that when they come in from the fire, there is a dedicated stair that goes down to this decon area with dedicated separate ventilation to the outside. And the shower areas are also located in the basement, so they can move from fire bay to decon to shower into green zone all on that one floor. And that keeps all those activities then isolated on that lower level in the basement. We are also locating a small fitness area, dedicated fitness area down there to have its own separate supply and exhaust system as well. On the main floor, which is the next image, Here we're looking at a 2-bay where we can now increase the footprint of the building width-wise by a few feet, which now allows us to get two garage doors in that are large enough, 14-foot plus, to accommodate engines and an ambulance, which is not available currently. We are looking at staggering the bays. One would be deeper for the engine, and one is sized for an ambulance. We didn't have room to do a full 60-foot deep bay on both sides due to other programming requirements that were needed on the building. This floor also has a separated radio room and then a public entry area with secured entry vestibule for outside people that might be visiting or stopping by the fire station. Because it's 2-story, we would need an elevator, and we do need stair access that's provided here. Fortunately, for the code for these kind of buildings with a 2-story, due to the limited occupancy on the second floor, we can get by with one stair. The other component here would be moving within the app bay itself would be a double height space. So that provides room. Oh, I clicked the wrong button. Let's see if I can go back. Okay. We have a double height space that allows us to put a mezzanine within the app bay, and that can be used for additional storage of equipment and provide a little more relief of the space around the engines themselves. And then lastly, we have the top floor, or it would be the second floor. That becomes a housing floor, and that would be a dedicated bunk room area. Front of house would be your day room and kitchen area. Both of these are actually almost double the space they have currently. And then we also have room for a separate bathroom on that level and small breakout office space. All of these will be connected back down to the app bay area with a fire slide. I shouldn't say we. The industry quite a while ago moved away from fire poles due to safety hazards. One of the biggest injuries that fire were sustaining was actually from the fire pole on the way out of the firehouse. So those have been systematically being removed, and there is now a push for actual fire slides to get you vertically down quickly in a more controlled manner. So any questions on option 1 before I go to option 2?
Corey.
Can we get a slide in Village Hall?
So option 2 is basically the exact same footprint as option 1 building-wise, but it's looking at a hypothetical larger site. This site would be about twice the size of the site it's on now. I apologize, I don't recall the exact acreage. I believe it's under half an acre. But this allows for a little more parking. Right now, the 8 spots that we're providing in option 1 doesn't actually fulfill a full shift change. There would have to be some temporary street parking done as people come in and out of the building. This option would provide enough space to have all of the shift change parking contained on the site. Also, a little extra room for any sort of exterior activities the fire department might need to do for training or practice, that kind of thing. Just gives them a little more flexibility. That's really the biggest change between option 1 and option 2. Option 2, the building plan itself is exactly the same. It is a 2-story with basement and mezzanine, very similar layout. I think the only difference here is that we moved a potential outdoor space to the roof of the second floor for fire department use. Third option looks at a larger site. This would actually span from street to alley. And this looks at a larger building as well, where we have removed the housing from above the app bay area and have put it over a dedicated sort of office admin area. Larger site would allow for, again, the increased parking count that we need. There's a little more room on the site for the engines to be moved out and maintained on site. And there would be more of a staff side parking and visitor parking side as well within the site itself. The benefits, and I skipped this, I apologize, on option 2 and 3, since those would be new sites, would be that the current firehouse could remain in operation while the new firehouse is being built and then transitioned over without too much of a interruption in service. But some of the negatives would be brand new utilities, new expansion, locating the site within Oak Park. There's a lot of other components there to consider. The floor plans for this one, this would not have a basement. This would be slab-on-grade construction. We'd have all of the, let's start with the right here. This would be the main floor building. You have a deeper app bay, so you'd have more room. You'd do 2 full engines here if the need ever arose. There is some room for other vehicle storage within the app bay. This one does have a different configuration for the decon or decontamination sequence. So in this case, everything's on the same floor as the app bay. And basically the idea is that you move off the truck, you hose down, you move into these secondary rooms, and then eventually everything gets cleaned and set back into the turnout room, which will be adjacent directly by the fire engines, so that when you do your rollout, they come down the slide, enter into turnout, get their gear, and go around to the engine to hop out. The goal of this is really to reduce your turnout times and try to get these shaved down by 10, 15, 30 seconds. That it really does make a difference. In this option, we keep the lockers on the first floor, and then we have fitness on the first floor as well. We have a larger radio room. We do have the elevator and stair. In this orientation, because we have a larger footprint, we are required to have 2 stairs because our occupancy by square footage, it gets a little higher. So you do have a little more vertical circulation requirement for this layout. And then on the second floor is where we do have the housing. Again, we have row of individual bunk rooms. We do have separated toilets up here, kitchen and day room functions. And then we do have, again, the slide going down to the app bay level. This difference is that we're not adding a mezzanine in the app bay. Everything is basically 2 volumes that are next to each other. And so the housing side could be basically the same roof line as the app bay side if that were decided to keep that box clean for constructability purposes. That is our third option. I did put a slide here at the end that sort of identifies the benefits and challenges of each option for further conversation and sort of wraps up our presentation of the concepts.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Village Manager Jackson. Anything further?
Just I have an announcement that I need to make. Do we have a Brian Hardy in the audience right now? We have a car outside that's the alarm continues to go off. So just Brian Hardy.
That's from you.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll turn it back over to you, President Scammon, trustee members. So we're seeking direction tonight on an option to advance for future planning.
Okay, very good. Is there any one of the 3 options that we can rule out? Is there any consideration among some of my colleagues of, using the same land, the land that we currently own or not? Opinion there? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I don't think option 1 makes a lot of sense. I think the both the added cost and the potential for a delayed response time when we're doing some sort of alternative location during construction, for me makes option 1 not a preferred option. I don't have a strong opinion between option 2 and option 3. It depends on sort of what sites we're able to identify. I think we've seen some analysis previously regarding response times from various sites in sort of North Oak Park, and it seems like a site location in North Central Oak Park would provide the best response times across North Oak Park and to the downtown area where we have our densest areas, and having multiple apparatuses respond quickly is most important. So so I'm for option 2 or 3, depending on what site we can locate in that sort of north central Oak Park area that provides good response times across northern Oak Park.
Okay, very good. And so if there's no one who's I tend to agree with everything that Brian stated, other than I too realize we're largely along Kyler up inside, and that's kind of consistent with, it's not Kyler, but the slightly east side, but still the northern end of our community. So do you have anything?
No, just a separate comment, if that's okay.
Okay, just want to make sure that we can take off item 1 or option 1. Okay, very good.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Yeah, options 2 or 3 make the most sense to me too, for all the reasons that Brian mentioned. First question I just had was, in these budgeting numbers here, did we look into making these facilities net zero or all electric, or both?
No, I don't believe we were looking into the energy side right now.
Okay.
We were looking at more construction square footage based on typical building practices.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I'd like to, I mean, if, as this moves forward, I'd like to see that as a consideration made for our municipal buildings to be net zero. And also, I think if we are going to change our community choice aggregation plan, there's incentive for us to do that, and to potentially, if there's room to put solar on them and anything like that. So just wanted to, maybe that's too early to talk too much detail about that, but I want that, yeah, to be included in these conversations going forward.
Well, important information for the finance committee too, as it may affect the cost, right? So, yeah, I would tend to agree as well, since we have to live our own values here and direction to our employees. Okay, who'd like to go? Anyone have a preference with 2 over 3? And does staff have any additional information also to share with the public on how it is that we would proceed with identifying a location?
Good evening, JT Terry, Fire Chief. First of all, thank you very much for this opportunity. To answer the very specific question of identifying a location, that would be obviously at the direction of the Finance Committee and then the Board. But as we look at all our operations, we looked at our calls for service and how they balance. And one thing that we've looked at is, you know, back in 1913 or 15, as they were looking at this, Oak Park looked very different. You know, and that's kind of, as was addressed earlier, how we ended up in this landlocked location. So we would look at our safest and our most efficient routes. Obviously, that's going to be your major north-south or east-west thoroughfares, as we do. And we'd also look at, you know, future plans of where the village is going to look at, you know, not only where we would locate or try to locate this facility, but also where our services change, you know, and how we provide the best service to the current and future residents of Oak Park. So that will definitely be something we can get into, you know, as we move forward into this. That answers the question.
And the Office of Economic Vitality, they've been supporting this effort heretofore, and they would continue to support the team in identifying potential site options.
And as we go forward with our discussion, is there pros and cons? You know, you just heard Trustee Straw and some of his process of considering the design itself. That is above and beyond what you've already laid out as pros and cons that we should be considering in location. And once we do identify a location, that might even change what the option looks like, right? So, but I'll turn it over to Derek as we go. We'll just try and think holistically. Okay, Jim?
So I just wanted to mention a couple things. I always think when I look at these things and they're asking for our recommendations, I mean, we're not obviously engineering experts on fire departments, so we're weighing these kind of in a holistic, high-level way. Number one does seem to be off the table. I think it's shoehorned into that area, and when that was built, the entire quadrant was empty. There was, you could see North Avenue from those locations, and there were no homes, because I was in the History Museum, and I remember saying it was built mostly in the 20s. So anyway, there was nothing up there, and now it's demanding certainly a larger facility, and I think it's important to look at. To me, it seems like we should be looking at considering site location at this moment. That's the most inexpensive part of what we're looking at here is actually the land. The financing and all that we're talking about, we're going to obviously undertake a large debt moving forward, trying to deal with the police station, the village hall, the other issues, the other things we're funding. And this puts us near we will be near the limit of our debt capacity. And so we have to maybe look at shifting things potentially, but also looking for the future. And options of land don't come along very often. So I think we should be actively looking with our economic vitality people for property and secure that now and you know, think about this later. It's not an emergency situation where it's urgent, you have to do it and today, but it should be looked at for the future and lock in something. And then I don't know how that design fits into it, because if we don't know what the site is going to be layout or what the size is, spending a lot of time thinking about the design, to me, is maybe putting the cart before the horse a little bit, because we don't know what it would look like or how big it would be or where it would be located, how it would be situated. Would it be on a corner? Would it be in the middle of the block? All those things would be factors, I would think. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
If I could just, a real quick response, the part of the effort we were doing with the options was to show different footprints of potential lot sizes to help the village get an idea of how much space would they need if they were going to look at purchasing property, what ballpark of acreage should they be shooting for. So I totally agree with Trustee Taglia's points. I just want to point out that that was something we were considering with the design options. At this stage, they're fairly schematic, just to give a footprint to understand scale.
One last thing. Of the option 2 and option 3, I'd like to hear what the chief has to say about that. I mean, you're the expert, right? So I would.
Safety is the most important thing. Not only the safety during response, but as the firefighters and paramedics are living in the station. So when we look at the design options, it's how can we separate the employees as much as from the equipment and the carcinogens as possible. So to that, again, it goes back to options with, finding real estate, because that's been the driver here, right? Is obviously we want as much space to separate, dangerous environments from the individuals living and working and serving the people of Oak Park. So as we go down this road, the real estate will kind of drive where we are, but we have the data to support where we want to be and where we'd like to go. We're very familiar with traffic patterns, so that plays into it also. So if that answers your question, that as much as we can separate individuals from known carcinogens in dangerous environments, that's the goal here.
It says larger is better in that regard, I think. It speaks to that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we've got 2-story with basement, 2-story larger, larger building. So it's basically what we're considering.
I think to me, option 3, if we can identify a lot of that size, is preferable, because it does a better job of providing that separation from carcinogens. One of the things you spoke to around those safety concerns is ideally you don't have the living spaces above the apparatus bay. In option 3, the apparatus bay is over sort of the yellow and green zones, rather than or the living spaces over the yellow and green zones of the first floor rather than being over the apparatus bay. And option 3 provides for more flexibility in the apparatus bay, whereas option 2, it's limited to room for an ambulance and an engine, whereas option 3, you could do 2 engines or an engine, an ambulance, and some other apparatus sort of parked in the back, so you have optionality. And so I think the flexibility of option 3, the ability for option 3 to grow with the community, so that it's a little bit more future-proofed. We've got an issue in this firehouse right now where it was built for a horse and a fire wagon, and we've gotten to the maximum that it can possibly accommodate and beyond that. So I think the idea of an option that provides for a little bit more future proofing, where as new apparatuses become the standard, we have some room to grow within the space rather than building to sort of the minimum standards of what we need now and not having room to grow in the space in the future.
Okay, again, as I'm already hearing that, we're looking at option 2 or 3. We're looking for, I agree with that tendency to want to be planning for the future, and, the health of our employees and safety of our employees being always a top priority. I would tend to agree. After I throw it to Corey, I'll ask Derek if there's anything then about that, and Rob Sproul, but that expectations you would have, Derek, on like that net zero of a two-story non-basement versus, not, but just because we know that with throwing this to the Finance Committee next, as much information as we can provide on our expectations is going to help that process go faster. Corey.
Hey, Chief. Appreciate this presentation here. I got two questions. Well, one, first I want to say I agree with pretty much everything Trustee Strauss said. First question, this comes from the community. Is it possible to locate this fire station on North Avenue?
That would be at the kind of direction of the Finance Committee, and what's available, at the time that we decide to move forward. So there are lots available throughout town, but again, the direction will be able to kind of settle in on one spot more than the other.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. Do you think that's a feasible kind of, in terms of like distance and service areas and those sorts of things?
So it's definitely further north than we are now, but with the modern technology, don't want to mention names, but some maps are better than others. We would work our districts. We've done that in the past.
Sure.
To make the most efficient use of our vehicles. And then also we look at where our call volume is, our hotspots are, and we would adjust accordingly.
Okay, sounds great. I'll let them know that it is not an absolute no. Yeah, so then for me, this is all about future proofing, right? Like it's 100 years later and you guys are working out of a, I don't know, horse stall. And who knows what's going to be in 100 years from now. But to the extent that we can future proof the site location and whatever we build there, that's what I would like to see.
All right. Derek?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm actually quite curious if Rob has put any thought into what this could look like, if it's a net zero, if geothermal makes sense, if it's a new construction. I've heard there have been challenges just because you got those big doors opening and closing to like seal the space if you're talking about heating. So there are challenges that are, I guess, maybe somewhat unique to a fire station. I'm curious if you've got thoughts on that.
Yeah, I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility. I mean, there's definitely there's likely a cost increase associated with the additional work that would need to go into that. The evacuation of the air that happens when those doors open is a concern. We looked at that with evaluating the geothermal system for Fire Station 2 originally a few years ago. So you're likely going to need supplemental heating system in that space to make up for that. It is also a 24/7 facility, which creates some challenges, but under the right circumstances with the right types of equipment and utilizing like a flat roof like that to recoup solar, I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility. So yeah, I think it's possible, and it could be considered as we kind of move the project forward and make sure that we include those costs as some optionality with the project, so that the board has an understanding of what that cost would be associated with the project moving forward.
Yeah, okay. It seems certainly worth the effort. I mean, I would hope in 100 years from now, natural gas is a thing of the past. So let's move there. Thanks.
Okay, Trustee Enya, anything?
No, I tend to agree with what Trustee Straw was talking about. I do agree that I just don't see options 1 truly as an option. I think option 3 gives the most flexibility for a growing fire department, but also just giving some more flexibility when it comes to room, space concerns, and just making sure that we're not putting ourselves in a similar situation in the near future, and rather building something out that grows with this fire department and can last for a longer period of time. And I just don't think when they were, attending the Fires by Horse, they were thinking this far into the future. So I definitely want to see us bring something that's far more future-proofed for future residents of Oak Park. So I do think that gives us a lot better of an option and doesn't put the constraints that I think we might see ourselves might see kicking ourselves for later down the line, if we could just address this right now in a matter that makes the most sense. And I think option 3 does do that for us. It's just cost and location. I think the cost is, sometimes just a tough pill to swallow, but also finding the right spot in Oak Park in a place that we continue to have a short stock of properties to utilize.
All right, sounds like we have our direction. It sounds like we're leaning towards something most similar to option 3, realizing that when you bring options back to the finance committee, and we did hear from the village manager that the economic vitality team is already diligently working with the fire department and the village manager's office to identify locations, that then the options you're bringing to us might end up having, some medley just because there might be restrictions on that land. And, but you kind of hear where our priorities are. Anything further for anyone? All right. Well,
I will state, I think you covered it, President Scaman, but I think you would all agree, it seems like there's an interest even in looking at option 3 to prioritize property acquisition now.
That only makes sense from what I'm hearing from my colleagues and how I feel as well,
Okay.
to even be able to make those decisions. Yes.
I wasn't going to say anything because I've been in agreement with everything that has been said, but I will underscore the prioritization and the urgency that this should be a priority for our work. So thank you to those who are looking at sites, and I look forward to evaluating those as soon as we get a viable option.
Yeah, I think there's obviously a lot to consider in location, and having as many options as we would want from that first step. Okay, thank you. Any questions, Rob? Village manager? Oh, then you're directing me on how you want this motion?
Yes. So there's a few ways to do it. It seems like the consensus is option 3. The initial motion was a very general motion to select, and so you can do a friendly motion. The motion maker and the second can agree that the motion is to select option 3 and to refer back to the finance committee. I think the other option is unnecessary to have a motion to amend. It seems like you all are on the same page, so I don't believe that you need a motion to amend if you all can do a friendly motion.
Okay.
I believe the motion maker was Trustee Taglia. The seconder was Trustee Leving Jacobson.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Okay, so you have your direction through your motion is a friendly motion to focus on option 3.
Friendly motion, yes, option 3.
Second.
Very good. Clerk Waters, can you please take the roll? I don't know, can we tell if Clerk Waters can hear? Clerk Waters, can you please take the roll? Yeah, she might be transitioning.
President Scaman,
Okay.
Marcus, the attorney will do it.
Trustee Wesley,
Yes.
Trustee Straw,
Yes.
Trustee Taglia,
Yes.
Trustee Leving Jacobson,
Yes.
Trustee Eater,
Yes.
Trustee Enya,
Yes.
President Scaman.
Yes, thank you. And so if we can hold the call to board and clerk for the next regular meeting that will be starting after a short break so that we can reset the video, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Eater, seconded by Trustee Wesley. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, excellent. Thank you.